Hello.
Hey, Kerry. So we had a little conflict, so everybody wasn't able to sign on until really late. And then a lot of people have forgotten too, so might not be as widely participated as I hoped it was going to be, but we'll just try our best.
Sorry, my headphones weren't working. Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Awesome. Sorry about that.
So we had a little glitch with another meeting at the same time that we didn't realize was conflicting. And then we forgot to remind the girls about it. So there's only a few on right now. So hopefully more will come on later.
We can wait a handful of minutes. Are you able to either allow me to share my screen or make me a co-host?
Hold on. Might be Jill. Hold on. I think Jill started it.
Cassie.
I totally forgot that you would be at championships this weekend.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I started or not, but where would I be able to do that? Because let me see. Because I'm signed into the other room now, Cassie. So
should I leave and go try to sign back in? Claim host. Oh, I don't even know how to do that.
Yeah, it doesn't look like I have hosting responsibilities right now.
So who's someone has to be the host? Who is it?
Kim was probably, I don't know.
All right, I'm gonna leave and try to sign in.
Okay.
I don't know. Why can't I figure out? Let me see. Oh, wait, hold on. Share screen. Okay, so now maybe I can make her the co-host. How do you do that? Oh my God. Kerry. Make host. There we go. Okay, did that work?
We did it.
Oh, yeah.
There we go. You'd think after a year and a half, Zoom would be easier than it actually is, but it's never easy.
I know.
Okay.
Well,
you let me know when you want me to get started. I'm fine waiting a couple minutes for the girls to hop on too. If you want, we can give them till like 10 after.
All right, that sounds good, I guess. What time is it?
I think we gotta give them like another minute or two.
Okay. Sorry about that. I don't know. That was really a mess.
That's fine. I thought I was going to have a really, really busy morning, and it ended up being a lot calmer
Oh, good.
than anticipated. So I'm like, I'm good.
Good, good.
But so girls that are currently on, I'm so glad you were able to jump in with us. If you'd like, I know you all know each other, but I don't know you. So if you'd like, hop over to the chat and just introduce yourself a little bit. So just let me know maybe your name and what level you were last year. Thank you guys for introducing yourselves. I think what we'll do, we'll go ahead and get started. I think you guys are recording this, so if anybody happens to miss it or miss the beginning, they can always come back and watch. But we're more than happy to have people join us midway through as well. So before we get started, I just wanted to introduce myself to you all a little bit. So my name is Kerry, and I am a registered dietitian. And what that means is that I am a nutrition expert. So I know all about, fueling your body to really be your best in the gym. And specifically, actually, what I do is I help gymnasts to fuel their bodies just so you all can be at your best, stay your healthiest, and just reach your highest potential in the gym while developing a good relationship with food that's going to last forever. So that's really what we're going to talk about today. I myself used to be a gymnast, so I competed up through level 10, competed in college, and coached gymnastics as well. So I know all about the ups and downs of training, what it's like being in the gym for hours and hours, having lots of goals that you want to reach in the gym, as well as some of the challenges and struggles you face in and out of the gym. So I'm really glad that I was able to hop on and connect with you all today. Since we are on Zoom, I want you guys to use the chat box as much as possible. I want to try to make this as interactive as we can. I want to get your input. I want to get your thoughts, your ideas. I don't want it just to be me talking for an hour. So definitely jump in and use the chat. I want to ask a ton of questions to you guys, and I want to hear your answers. If you happen to have questions at all during the presentation, and you feel like they go with what we're talking about, they're important for the whole group to hear, definitely put them in the chat. I'm more than happy to answer. We will leave some time at the end for questions as well. And if you have questions that maybe feel a little bit more individual or a little bit more personal, we can either save those for the end, or I will make sure to give you my contact information and you guys can always reach out to me directly. So does that sound good? I hope. I don't see faces, so I've just got the chat. So if that sounds good, thank you. We will get started. So today, really what I want to talk about is nutrition, right? The foods that we eat and how we fuel our body, but thinking about how it relates to us in the gym, because we, of course, want to be our best. So some of the goals and some of the things that we're going to really talk about today are making sure that you are well fueled to support the high level of training that you do, to make sure that we're supporting your health and your recovery and your growth, and to make sure that we are keeping up with not only your physical health, but your mental health as well, because that really does play a big role in our food choices and how we fuel our body. So we want to make sure that we feel good about the choices that we're making in all sorts of directions. And of course, lastly, we want to make sure we're learning these skills for life. We don't want to just learn how to fuel our body as a gymnast, because even when gymnastics ends, you still have to eat and we've still got to fuel our bodies. So we're going to learn information that is going to be important, not just for gymnastics, but for life. So I want your input. Why, as a gymnast, are the foods that we eat and how we fuel our body, why is it important? I kind of gave a couple of hints on that last slide, but let me know what you think. No ideas? Yes, thank you, Maisie. The number one thing that I like to talk about when it comes to food is making sure that you have enough energy, not just for training, but every day, right? From the time you wake up to the time you go to bed, for anything else you're doing during the day as well. We've got to make sure we have enough. Any other reasons why nutrition is important for you as a gymnast? Anything else we can think of? Yes, recovery is a really, really big one. And I'm going to kind of put these up here. Yes. So not just recovering after practice, right? Because we've got to make sure we can get in the gym day after day. I know you guys practice 4, 5, 6 days a week sometimes, making sure we feel just as good on Friday or Saturday as we did on Monday. So we want to make sure we're recovering. We want to prevent injuries, or if we've got some injuries, we want to make sure that they've got the building blocks to heal. And of course, we want to stay healthy. The foods that we eat, they can help our immune system, so we're not missing practice because we're, a little under the weather or we get sick frequently. Some of these things can help. As a gymnast, I'm surprised. Usually everybody's jumping to tell me that they want to get stronger in order to build our muscles, to build strength and endurance, to be able to do more skills, new skills, harder skills, more difficult and complex routines. We've got to get stronger, and we've got to have the building blocks to be able to do that. We want to be able to stay focused. Our brain itself takes a ton of energy just to stay functioning and stay sharp. So we've got to make sure we're fueling our brain. And the last piece that we don't always think about, but it is a really, really important piece of the puzzle, is making sure that we've got enough energy and enough building blocks to grow and develop and change the way that our body was designed and kind of programmed to grow. And that way we can grow into the happiest, healthiest, highest performing version of ourself. So really the foods that we eat, they are important for our body. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So when I think of food and I think of gymnastics, I like to think of a pyramid. Now, when we're thinking of like a pyramid, which, maybe we're making a pyramid of our friends or with our teammates, the top or the bottom, which do we want to be the strongest? Which has to be the strongest piece? Yes, the bottom is definitely going to be the strongest piece. Now, especially if we're thinking like, okay, we're stacking our friends and we're building a human pyramid, which part, the top or the bottom, seems to get all the fame and attention? The top, definitely. We don't think about the bottom as much, but we're always kind of focused on the top. What would happen if we put maybe the smallest or weakest teammate on the bottom? What would happen to our pyramid? Would it stay up or would it topple? Yeah, we would fall down. Absolutely. So when we think about our gymnastics, right, the skills, the routines, the medals at the competition, all of that, right, those are our goals. But that's the top of our pyramid. When we're in the gym, we've got to be, of course, working hard. We've got to work on our basics, our strength, our conditioning. In order to do that, we've got to feel good walking into the gym. We've got to make sure our body is always recovering and growing. But in order for that to happen, we've got to remember the base of our pyramid. And that is always going to be the foods that we eat, the drinks that we drink, and the way that we take care of our body. So things like sleep and self-care and other kind of recovery. That is going to be our foundation. When our foundation is strong and we've got enough building blocks, right, enough energy, enough nutrients in our body, we're able to get stronger and recover and grow, and our body's going to feel good. We're able to come into the gym and work hard and get stronger and up our conditioning and run faster. And then we're going to be able to learn new skills and build harder routines, right? See how it kind of builds on itself? But if there's cracks in our foundation, right? Maybe we're missing something. We're scared to fuel our bodies in a way that really we need to be fueled, or we're missing a piece of the puzzle, then our pyramid is going to topple, right? We're not going to feel as good the days we get into the gym. We are not going to get as strong as we would like to. And those skills and those dream routines, they might not happen. So we've got to remember the base, the foundation. And part of that really has to do with energy. Everything we're going to talk about today is going to circle back to having enough energy. So as a gymnast, your body really does need a ton of energy. Of course, we think about all the energy that we use just going to gymnastics or recovering from day to day of gymnastics, but that's, again, just a piece of the puzzle. You need energy to stay alive. Even if you were to sleep in bed for 24 hours, right? Not wake up, not move, not even go to the bathroom, your body would still need a ton of energy just to keep you alive, right? To keep your heart beating and your brain firing and all your organs running. All of these things take energy. And as we're growing, this takes extra energy. Whether it's we're growing taller, we're growing stronger, our body's changing, our hormones are changing, all of these take energy. Everyday activities take energy. Going to school, staying focused through your classes, little things like walking around the store or walking your dog, all this takes energy, and it's all going to add up. We need a ton of energy. But how much energy that you need is going to be different from day to day. As much as we think gymnasts are robots, you're not, right? Some days you feel like you need more energy than others. Some days you feel hungrier or less hungrier than others, and that's okay because we're not robots. Our energy needs are allowed to be different every day. We're always kind of fueling for that average over time. And the amount of energy you need is going to be unique to you. It's not going to be the same as your teammate, even if she trains the exact same way as you. It's not going to be the same as your sibling. It's It's not going to be the same as your friend at school who plays soccer, for 2 hours a week. Right? How much energy you need is going to be unique to you. And it's going to be based on a whole bunch of things, like how old you are, your gender, your height, how much muscle mass you have, how much you train, what your normal eating habits are, what your sleep habits are, what your stress management habits are, right? There's a lot of factors that go into how much energy you need. So we really can't compare ourselves to others. We've got to learn and think about some of the things that our body is trying to tell us. And that is going to be the best way and the easiest way for you to know how you stack up. So it always to me comes back to energy. So thinking about your energy when you wake up in the morning, throughout the day, at the start of practice, at the end of practice, are you feeling good? Would you rate yourself maybe on a scale of 1 to 10? Would you say, most of the day you're like an 8 or above, you're feeling great, you make it through the day? Or do we go through slumps and we lose steam during training, right? About halfway through? Do we wake up exhausted all the time? These are all kind of signals that our body's trying to tell us. Thinking about your training, do we feel like we're making great progress in the gym, that we're getting stronger, we're getting faster, we're learning skills at at an appropriate rate for our training and on our training plan? Or do we feel like we're kind of falling behind, that we're stuck, that maybe some of our teammates are able to run faster or do more strength or conditioning than we are? Thinking about your sleep, how are you able to get enough sleep each night? Are we prioritizing 8, 9, 10 hours of sleep, or are we kind of struggling to get that? Do we struggle to fall asleep or stay asleep? Do we feel exhausted when we wake up in the morning? Are we starving by the time we wake up in the morning? Are we waking up in the middle of the night hungry? These are all kinds of ways that our body can tell us we might be missing out. Another big piece of the puzzle can be things like your mood. Are you kind of someone that's pretty stable throughout the day? Little things don't get to you. You feel relatively good, content. You're not stressing about food. You're not constantly thinking about food. Or do you find that your mood kind of drops at, or changes at the drop of a hat? Same with focus. Are you able to focus, or are we kind of struggling? So these are some of the best ways, and I know that's kind of a lot of things to think about, but if anything is jumping out at you, whether it's, a really good thing, or, maybe we're struggling a little bit, these are the signs that we've got to listen to what our body is telling us. Oh, and last thing being injuries, right? Chronic injuries, especially bone injuries and stress injuries, they can also be a sign that maybe we're missing the mark a little bit. So it all comes back to energy. So who has ever heard of the word calorie before? Has anyone actually heard that word before? I'm sure we've heard it. Let me know yes or no in the chat. So we've all heard the word. Does anyone actually know what it means? Right? When people talk about it, they make it sound so scary. And in reality, when we are talking about food and the energy that food provides us, that's all calorie is. Calorie is the way that we represent the energy in food. It's not scary. It's not something we need to avoid or shoot for, less of or the smallest amount of, because we really just talked about how much energy a gymnast needs to feel their best. So when we're looking at food and when we hear these words, right, enough is always going to be best. It's not something we need to fear. It's not something we need to be scared of. When I talk about food, I tend to use the word energy, but I just wanted to make sure that we kind of understand that the word calorie is not something we need to be scared of. Calories in food, we don't need to be scared of. We're just talking about how much energy is in food. Because in reality, as a gymnast, right, if we think back to our pyramid, the base, right, the bottom line of food, the bottom line of nutrition is energy. That is always your body's number one priority. It's going to be making sure it has enough energy to support all of those pieces of the puzzle that we talked about. And without enough energy, nothing else is really going to matter. I don't care how much protein you eat. I don't care how many vegetables you eat. I don't care, if you eat ice cream or not. Without enough energy at the bottom, nothing else is going to matter. And our body's not going to be able to be at its best. We're not going to feel our best, and we're certainly not going to train our best. So we're always striving to get enough energy. So energy, it comes from food. It comes from the foods that we eat, specifically foods with carbohydrates, foods with protein, and foods with fat. And they all have their own individual roles, but their underlying, number one role is going to be energy. So we're going to just talk a little bit about these pieces of the puzzle to make sure we understand what they do for our body and why it's important that we include them. So I want to start with carbohydrates, or sometimes called carbs. Have you guys all heard about these before? These are the ones that I tend to hear. I am always hearing people talking about carbs. What do you hear? What do you hear people saying? So good or bad? There could be good carbs, there could be bad carbs. Have we heard anything else? Now, just to clear this up, whether it comes to carbs or it comes to any other kind of food, there is no such thing as a food that is strictly good and a food that is strictly bad. I'm going to say that again. There are no such things as good foods and bad foods. There are foods that we may eat for certain reasons, like their energy or their other nutrients, their other building blocks. And then there are foods that we may eat for other reasons, and we find a balance between the two. But there is no such food that is exclusively bad that you have to avoid, or exclusively good that you have to include. We've got to find that middle ground. But yes, when I hear carbohydrates, a lot of people are afraid of them. They're scared to eat them. They're scared to include them for one reason or another. Now, to clear things up once and for all, as a gymnast, these foods are going to be your number one source of energy. So whether it is storing energy in your muscles that you're going to be able to use for a long practice, or needing a burst of energy when you run down the vault runway or push for a tumbling pass, our body relies on carbohydrates. Your brain relies on carbohydrates. So we need to make sure we are including them. So does anybody know or have an idea of what kinds of foods would fall into this group? Some that I find are obvious and some are a little less obvious. What kinds of foods fit in this group? Yes, bread, pasta, all our grains and starches, rice, cereal, oatmeal, any of your breakfast favorites, pancakes and waffles. Yes, potatoes. Those are grains and starches. We've got tons of other grains like quinoa and farro. Right? There's tons and tons of really great foods. Any other food groups that might fit into this carbohydrate group that we can think of? Right, we've got our grains and starches. Yes. Fruits and vegetables are also sources of carbohydrates. They all provide your body with energy. Now, they don't all provide your body with the same amount of energy. Grains and starches tend to give you the most bang for your buck, right? So you're going to get the most energy in the smallest portion size, which is sometimes really important when you're trying to load up on energy and make sure you have enough. Fruits are going to fall somewhere in the middle, and our vegetables, for the portion size and the amount of space they take up in your stomach, are going to give you the least amount of energy. So if we're trying to load up on energy after practice, do we think a cup of rice or a cup of cauliflower rice would be better, would give us more energy? Yeah, traditional rice. What about pasta or zucchini noodles? Which would give us more energy to recover after practice? Yeah, pasta, for sure. Which would be more energizing to eat before practice? A fruit salad or a green salad? Yeah, fruit salad. Absolutely. Right. So we've got to think about that as we kind of fuel our body and make sure we're getting enough energy. Because if we're not prioritizing and including grains and starches, fruits, and vegetables, right? Vegetables still have a place on our plate. But if we're not including, especially grains and starches, it's going to be really, really hard to make sure we have enough energy. So these are going to be a staple for you as a gymnast. Now, there are other foods that fit into the carbohydrate umbrella. So these are foods that I would say, I call them fun foods. Maybe they're cookies or chips or they're snack foods, desserts. At the end of the day, they are still energy, right? They're still going to give your body energy. Now, these grains and starches, fruits and vegetables, I kind of call those more like food group foods. They are going to come with other nutrients as well, other building blocks like vitamins and minerals that we're going to talk about a little later. And our body needs those as well. But as a gymnast, there is space and there is room for both. If we are choosing these food group foods, I'd say maybe 80% of the time, right? 85% of the time, we are going to absolutely get all those nutrients that we need. And then we've got room for our other foods and our other favorites. And that's not, 80% or 85% of one plate. That doesn't have to be, 80 or 85% of a day, right? We've got to think over time, right? How am I doing in a week? How am I doing in a month? How am I doing in a year? That's where we find our balance, because not every day is going to be, as great or as amazing as we want it to be, right? Some days we're going to eat more foods in that other category. Some days we're going to eat more foods like fruits and vegetables. At the end of, the day, the week, the month, our body's going to find balance, and our body knows what to do with all that different food and all that different energy. So it's perfectly okay to include all types of foods. Does that make sense to everybody? Does that sound good? Can we get some thumbs up, some yups in the chat, some heads shaking if you've got your camera on. Awesome. So one other thing that I want to talk about when it comes to carbohydrates, and I kind of alluded to this a little bit, is that there are different types of carbs, right? We said the starches and the grains have the most energy compared to the fruit and then the vegetables. And we want to use these carbs and these foods to fuel your performance, because this is going to be your body's energy for gymnastics. So we've got kind of two groups and two types of energy that I like to think about, two situations. So the first situation being when our body needs energy right away. Can you guys think of a time when that might be? When might you need to eat something and have energy right away? Yeah, maybe first thing in the morning. What about right before practice? Or halfway through a long practice? We need a pick-me-up. We don't want to have to wait for our body to feel energized. We don't want to wait for digestion to happen. When we need energy right away, we want our carbs to be as simple as possible. So when we think about our starches, we are looking for simple starches, or almost kind of, sometimes you hear them called like white products, like white bread, white rice, cereal, pasta, right? Very, very simple. Snack foods like pretzels and crackers and cereal. These starches are very low in fiber, and they're going to digest and give you energy very quickly. Fruit kind of also falls into this category, especially things like applesauce and dried fruit. So like, raisins, or like freeze-dried mango, dried banana. That's all, delicious as well. These are going to break down in your stomach really fast. They're not going to feel like they're going to sit there during practice, and they're going to give you a boost of energy. On the flip side, when might be a time where you need that energy? You don't need to be, 10 out of 10 on an energy scale, but you need it to last. Maybe, a 7 or an 8 is fine, but you need that energy to last. When might that be in your day? Maybe during school, maybe on a day off when you're not heading into the gym and we're kind of just going about our day, doing our normal activities. That's when we want to focus on those more high fiber, or what you sometimes hear as complex starches, like whole grain breads and whole wheat breads and brown rice and oatmeal and quinoa and farro, and lots of vegetables and fruits as well. These are going to hold your energy a little bit longer. They're going to take longer in your stomach. They're going to take longer to digest. But that would be a good thing during the day when we're outside of practice. Sorry. So does anybody have any questions or anything about carbohydrates? I know that was a lot, but I feel like this is the piece that gymnasts tend to miss the most. So I like to spend some time talking about it. So does anybody have any questions? We feeling pretty good? Awesome. So the next piece of the puzzle that I want to talk about is protein. Does anybody know why protein is important as a gymnast? Do you know what it's, other than energy, what its role is for? Yes. Protein not only builds muscle, but protein is really the building blocks for every part of your body. So muscle strength, and think about recovery and injury repair, right? This all comes from protein. And as gymnasts, we can get our protein from a ton of places, whether it's meat, like beef or steak, chicken, pork, turkey, fish, seafood, eggs, milk, dairy, cheese, beans, lentils, legumes, nuts, seeds, peanut butter, soy, right? There's tons and tons of places we can get protein from. Now, as a gymnast, do you feel like protein is the most important nutrient? Or it's seen like the most important nutrient? Now, as a gymnast, do you feel like you need a little bit of protein in your day, a ton of protein, or maybe somewhere in the middle? What do you think you need? Yes, somewhere in the middle. And that's a misconception that I hear all the time, is that gymnasts need tons and tons of protein. Really, most gymnasts are only going to need about, their body weight. So what your body weight in pounds is in ounces of protein per day, right? So it's not going to be all that much. Just for an easy math example, a 100-pound gymnast is probably going to need somewhere between about 75 to 100 grams of protein a day. What that really breaks down to is like 11 to 13 ounces. So if you're thinking like the last time you went to a steak restaurant or got a piece of chicken or a piece of fish, right? They're giving you 8, 10, 12 ounces on your plate. That could technically be enough for a whole day for a lot of you. So it's really not as much as we think. The important thing about protein is that we've got to spread it out throughout the day. Our body can only use so much protein at one time. So it's not one of those things that if some is good, more is better. We've got a cap, we've got a limit. And if we decide that we're not going to eat any protein all day long and then come home at night and just eat, a giant steak or a giant piece of chicken for dinner, our body's not going to make the most out of that. It's not going to do as much muscle building and as much repair as we'd like it to. So instead, we want to make sure that all of our meals, all of our snacks for the most part, really have some protein on our plate. And for most of you, that piece of protein is probably going to be at a meal somewhere like, 3 or 4 ounces. It's going to take up about a quarter of your plate. Or if you kind of look at your hand, that piece is going to be about the size of your hand. It's not huge, but we want to make sure that it's there and that our body can take advantage of those building blocks. Sound good? Any questions about protein? Awesome. So the last kind of place that our energy comes from that I want to talk about today are going to be foods with fats. Now, when we think about foods with fats, what are we thinking? What do we hear about or what do we think about? Do we hear anything? Do we think about anything? Now, sometimes these foods, they also can get, a tough reputation, but we want to make sure that we are also including foods with fats in our diet. They play a lot of really, really important roles for your body above and beyond energy. And yes, we kind of think, good or bad. I use the term healthy here, but it's not my favorite word either. Right? Our body really knows what to do and it can do a lot with whatever we give it. But we want to, as gymnasts, focus on these types of fats. So fats that come from fish and seafood, nuts and seeds, and other plants like olives and avocados, and our plant-based oils like olive oil and grapeseed oil and avocado oil, because our body can really do a lot with those. They can help protect our brain and make sure our brain is growing and functioning the way it's supposed to be. It can help make the most out of other foods. So a lot of our vitamins and minerals need foods with fat to be absorbed. So if we were to eat like a plain salad, or what I call, a sad salad that's just, lettuce and vegetables and nothing else, we're not going to get as much out of that salad as we would if we put some fat on it, whether it's dressing, whether it's cheese, whether it's, nuts or seeds. We've got to make sure we've got that piece to it. And it helps protect our body. So in gymnastics, I know we all take lots of tough falls. You miss a release off bars, you land on your stomach or on your back, and we don't think anything of it. We get right back up thinking nothing of it. We've got to make sure our body is protected. So not only don't we injure, what we typically think about, the elbows, the ankles, the wrist, the shoulder, but those really important organs that do so much for our body. Right? It would be really tragic if every time you fell off the beam, you ruptured a spleen. That would be not so great. So we want to make sure our body is protected, and we want to include these foods. Now, if you're looking at these foods, most of them fell into a food group that we already talked about, whether it's a protein food or like an olive or an avocado would be, I think it's technically a fruit, but I wouldn't put it in a fruit salad, so I'm going to call it a vegetable. It falls into another food group. So these are going to be foods that we really just want to have that mental check mark, right? Making sure I am including foods with healthy fats, if not at every meal, as regularly as we can, to make sure we're getting enough energy, we're protecting our brain, we're making the most out of our meals. Sound good about foods with fats? So the last piece that I want to talk about are going to be our vitamins and minerals. I refer to them later on as color, so just so you know what we're talking about. Not only do fruits and vegetables give our bodies energy, but they have tons and tons of these other nutrients that I call helper nutrients. I think that's a really easy way to think about it, because they help your body do everything else. Everything from turning the food that we eat into the energy that we can use, protecting our heart, our bones, our blood, our eyes. They are our body's helpers. And that is the reason they are so important. And everyone is always saying, you've got to eat your fruits and vegetables, you've got to eat them. Now you know why. When it comes to fruits and vegetables, a lot of these nutrients and these kind of properties, they go along with the color. So red fruits and vegetables do a lot of the same things, right? A lot of them protect our hearts. And orange fruits and vegetables, they protect our eyes. Our citrus fruits, right? Our orange, our yellows, they keep us healthy. They protect our immune system, help us recover from injury, and just from tough practices. Green fruits and vegetables, they help turn the food we eat from food into energy. They protect our bones, they protect our blood. And blue and purple fruits and vegetables, those are really, they're really helpful for recovery. So you hear a lot about things like tart cherry juice, blueberries, pomegranates, eaten, when you eat them after practice or before bed, can be helpful with recovery. But for fruits and vegetables, the goal is to eat the rainbow. There's no one specific fruit or vegetable that is going to be better or worse for you than another, right? We want to try new things. We want to incorporate as much variety as possible. That's how we check all our boxes and we make sure we're getting everything our body needs. But at the same time, there's nothing so super or special or exclusive about a cherry that you're not going to get from a blueberry, or eating kale as opposed to eating spinach, right? We're not really going to miss out. So we've got to make sure we're doing the best with what we have, what we can find, and we're not forcing ourselves to eat foods that we hate just because somebody else told us they were good for us, right? If you love spinach but hate kale, you never have to force yourself to eat kale because you can get the same nutrition from spinach. Or if you like carrots but not sweet potatoes, by all means, enjoy the carrots. The goal is to just find that variety and try to eat the rainbow. So I want to challenge you. If you think you could eat a rainbow of fruits and vegetables each day, then I want to challenge you to do that. If that feels a little tough or a little unrealistic, then the goal is to do it maybe in a week or in, 3 days. But trying to find that variety and covering all our bases. So I know that was a ton of information, right? We've got to make sure we've got carbs for energy and protein for our muscles and fats for our brain and fruits and vegetables for everything else. How do we fit this all in? The easiest thing to do is think about your meals, your snacks, and building your plate. I'm sure all of you have seen this picture at school, right? This is called My Plate. It's a very, very basic model of just showing how many, which foods should be on our plate, which foods are taking up what sections. Now, as a gymnast, we don't have to stick to this model. It's a little boring. It's not super applicable, but we can use this and we can apply it to our own life. So this is going to be our baseline plate. Whether you're, 25 and not a gymnast anymore, you take time off like in COVID, you're on vacation, you're at a gym for a while, or maybe, you've decided just to do some light exercise, you've got a break, maybe just going for walks or short little workouts here and there. We're going to use this baseline plate where, because right, we're not really training, we're not doing a whole lot of strenuous exercise, the section that is going to provide the most energy is going to be the smallest. So we think about the starches, right, where we get the most energy bang for our buck. If we're not exercising, we're not training, we don't need as much. Now, doesn't mean that we don't need any. They're still on the plate. They're never going to disappear. They're never going to go away. Whether you're training or not, you still get to eat these foods. No one's ever going to take them from you. But we want to make sure that, we can find that balance. So about a quarter of your plate is going to be starches, and about half of our plate can be fruits and vegetables. And then we've got our protein. That's always really going to stay the same. It's always going to be about a quarter. It's always going to be about that hand size portion that we talked about. But our baseline, and we're going to see the difference between the fruits and veggies and the starches and how they're going to change as we up our training and up our intensity. So as we get training a little bit more, maybe we're out of season, intensity is down in the gym, or we're doing light workouts, maybe just a lift or just a cardio for 1 to 3 hours, or this is what I call a recovery day, whether we're, we trained Monday, Tuesday, had off Wednesday, went back to training Thursday. I wouldn't call Wednesday a rest day. I would call it a recovery day. We're still trying to fuel our muscles. We're trying to regain all the energy that we spent at the gym and prepare for the next day. So because we're training more and because we're doing more, we need more energy, more off of that baseline. And that's where we start to increase the portion and the proportion of these starchy foods, like our grains and our starches. And because we've got, only a limited amount of space in our stomach, we've got to take that from somewhere. So we're not stuffing ourselves and feeling overly full. We can move to the fruits and vegetables, or we can take it a little from the fruits and vegetables, and we can kind of cut that back just a little. We're still going to get all the benefits, but we just don't need them to take up as much space in your stomach. And then as we get into what really feels like the majority of gymnastics, right? We're heavy training. We're training more than 3 hours a day. We've got 2-a-days. We've got camps. We're in the middle of competition season. Our body needs the most amount of energy to train. Our body needs the most amount of energy to recover. We've got to make the most out of our plate. So we see that starch section has expanded again to almost half of our plate, or to half of our plate. And again, we can pull back from the fruits and vegetables just a little bit to make sure we've got enough room to prioritize the energy that you need. So does that make sense? The more we're training, the more we're probably going to need to eat, and the more energy you're going to need, and that's going to come from starches. Sound good? Awesome. So the other big question that I want to answer for you today, so we talked about the what. The second question being, when do I need to be eating as a gymnast? Because in order to get enough energy, it's going to be a lot, and it's going to be often. There is no possible way that you can eat enough energy in 1 or 2 meals alone in a day. Those portions would be enormous, and I bet you would feel uncomfortable. So most gymnasts find it easiest to eat on a schedule, right? So eating regular meals and regular snacks. And I like to use the 3-hour mark as just a good kind of base to a good place to base your schedule on. So we, if we're eating, meals and snacks, we want to have something every 3 or so hours. And I've put this kind of scale, what I call the hunger and fullness scale, up on the screen for you guys to see, because our meals and snacks can tell us a lot, and how hungry and how we're feeling, before and after our meals can really be one of, it's not the only, but one of the good signals to tell us how we're doing. So if we sit down at our meal and we eat our food, and 20 minutes later, 30 minutes later, an hour later, we're hungry again, that's probably telling us we didn't eat enough, or we didn't have enough balance on our plate, right? Maybe we only put fruit on our plate, or we only put starch on our plate, and it wasn't enough to keep us full. So we can use that, right, to troubleshoot and make some adjustments for next time. Now on the flip side, right, if we sit down and we eat something and it's 6, 7, 8 hours again until we're hungry, that's might be a clue that either we ate too much, or maybe our plate was overloaded with something like protein or starch, right? Maybe we overdid it a little bit. None of these are bad things. They're not the only reasons that we may be hungrier or less hungry each day, but they may give us a clue on how we're doing. And this kind of scale in general is a good way to kind of think about your day and think about how we're fueling. And just making sure we're, trying to stay our best, especially on the hunger side of things, not letting ourselves get to the point where we're, right, a 2, a 1, a 0, where we're outwardly just starving, because at that point, right, we've missed something for our body. We haven't fueled it in a way that it likes. We are going to be missing out. Maybe we're missing out on our recovery, or we're missing out on our energy or our focus. And then on the flip side, it's really hard to make a comfortable food choice. So we end up eating, more of something than we would have liked. We end up choosing a food that we wouldn't necessarily choose in the first place. It's really, really hard to make an informed decision when you're starving. So I can always share this with you if it's something you want to look at later. I think it's helpful. It's not the only reason that we eat, but it's a good kind of way to think about things. So we're prioritizing eating on a schedule. We're eating every 3 hours. That means starting our day with breakfast. If we just slept for 8 hours or 9 hours, we're waking up on empty. And your body is always at the point where it's either recovering from training or preparing to train. So we've got to make sure we eat whenever we can, and we've got to start our day with breakfast. This might mean packing snacks. So if you've got a really big gap between breakfast and lunch, or a really big gap between lunch and dinner, or even a gap between dinner and bedtime, we may need to bridge those gaps with snacks. And that might take a little bit of thought and planning if you're going to be out or at the gym for a long day. We want to make sure we're eating before, during, and after training. And I'm going to talk in a second about what that's going to look like. And just remember that we've got to prioritize our recovery, and eating for recovery always, always, always comes before any time that the clock says. Whether, I don't care if you get home from practice and it's 11 o'clock at night, a recovery meal is still important. I don't care if you come home and you're about to go to bed and you're exhausted. We've still got to prioritize our recovery and get some food in. So just, think about your schedule a little bit and think about if we're doing enough, or if there are some times of the day where maybe we could do a little bit more. So I want to mention snacks, because sometimes snacks get a bad reputation, but especially as a gymnast, a snack is really just a mini meal. It's going to have a lot of the same puzzle pieces. So it's going to be a way to help us eat every 3 hours, eating before and after training. And when we build our snacks, we're looking for, at a minimum, 2 food groups, something for energy, whether that's going to be a grain or starch, a fruit, or a veggie, and something for our muscles. So probably protein, maybe a food with fat. So if we think about snack combinations that fit this, we could do apple and peanut butter. We could do a bowl of cereal and milk. We could do veggie sticks and hummus, cheese and crackers, right? Those all kind of have at least 2 food groups. They give us energy and they fuel our muscles. So we've got to eat before practice. We've got to make sure our muscles and our body has enough energy to fuel your training. Now, how long are your practices, everybody? Do you guys train, 3 hours, 4 hours? Three to 4 hours. Now, even the most well-fueled body, right? We store energy in our liver, we store energy in our muscles. How long do you think that energy will last before it runs out if we're using it for gymnastics? How many hours do you think it'll last? So if we're lucky, we're going to run out. If we're using up that energy to train, we're going to run out, if we're lucky, in 90 minutes or 2 hours at the absolute most. So we want to make sure we are fueling up until training, so we give ourselves the best shot to have energy for as long as possible. So if we're eating before practice, anything that's 3 or more hours before training should just be your balanced plate. So if you train at night, right, breakfast and lunch, we don't really need to do anything special or different other than build your performance plate. As we start to get a little bit closer to training, we've got to think about what's going to not only give us the best energy, but feel the best in our body, and make sure it's not sitting in our stomach, because our body is not great at giving energy to 2 things at once. So your body's either going to prioritize energy for training or energy for digestion. And when we have to prioritize energy for training, we might feel like food is just going to sit in our stomach and we're not going to feel so good. Or if we're prioritizing digestion, then that's when we feel like we're just sluggish in the gym, or maybe we, have to run to the bathroom and we don't feel so great. So foods that tend to be the culprits of an upset stomach before practice tend to be foods that are too high in fat. So think like really fried or really greasy foods before practice, too high in fiber. So lots and lots of vegetables or really, really kind of fibrous grains, and even too much protein. All of those things, and everyone is going to be different, but those tend to be the biggest culprits of what's going to sit in your stomach and not make you feel great at the gym. So the closer we get to practice, the simpler we want our snacks to be. So when we were talking about carbs, we talked about this. But as we get towards that, 1 hour or less before practice, and we just want to top off our energy stores, make sure we're walking in the door with the most possible energy, we are looking for mostly those quick, simple carbohydrates. We may want a little bit of protein to help make it last a little while longer, help balance us out just a little bit. But those snacks are going to be largely carbohydrate, starch, grain, fruit based. And if our practices are 3 or more hours long, like I said, we're going to run out of energy. Our body's going to run out of energy by the end. We cannot expect to be at our best at the last rotation if we don't refuel in the middle of practice. So we need something quick, something easy, something simple that is going to digest fast and just give us an energy boost. At this point, we're not really concerned how much nutrition, how many vitamins, how many minerals, right? What kind of food it is. We just need energy. So we want quick carbs, quick starches, pretzel sticks, crackers, graham crackers, goldfish, dry cereal. Those are all, great. If we're looking for like a granola bar or a bar, making sure it is, carb heavy and not too protein or fat heavy. Fruit is great here too. So whether it's a fruit cup or it could be dried fruit, applesauce. Mid-practice can even be something that we drink, like a sports drink or juice. All of these are going to give us that boost of energy. And if you're ever training for more than 4 hours, whether you've got like a 2-a-day or you've got a camp or something like that, that's just really, really long, you might need more than one snack. So think about that, right? Every 90 minutes to 2 hours, you probably want to eat something to keep your energy up. And then we've got to eat after practice. This is the only way our body is going to start recovering. Our goal is to absolutely have a balanced meal after practice at some point. If we can get that in that first, hour or 90 minutes, that's great. I know some of you probably have long drives to the gym. Sometimes you don't go home right after practice, right? You start running around, or maybe it's late at night and you're not starving. We need something. So at a minimum, we want to have at least carbohydrates. So whether it's starch or fruit, 1 or 2 servings of carbohydrates, as well as protein. So we've started to refill our energy stores, and we've given our body some building blocks to start repairing our muscles. Some after practice snacks that seem to be favorites could be anything from a glass of chocolate milk to a sandwich, even if it's like a PB&J, like, a yogurt parfait or a fruit smoothie. All of these kind of fit that mold. So we've got to refuel and recover after practice. So the last kind of thing, well, there's one more thing I want to just mention after that, but summing this up, really, I want you to remember there is no such thing as perfection, right? I know in the gym, we're always striving to be perfect, but there is no such thing when it comes to food and nutrition as a perfect diet, right? We're always learning, we're always trying new foods, we're always doing the best we can with what we have and dealing with our schedule and the craziness of life. We've got to just, right, remember, shoot for our plate when we can. There's no, specific food that has to go on your plate. You can build that athlete's plate, whether it's your home kitchen or, the drive-through on the way home from the gym. There's no such thing as perfection. There are no foods that are off limits, right? All foods can really fit on that plate. And we really are striving, like I said, for, maybe 80% of the time, we're shooting for foods from the food groups that are nutrient dense, that are going to fuel our body. And then, right, the rest of the time, we can find foods that we enjoy for different reasons, like celebrations, fun, whatever it might be. And you've got to find what works for you, right? What's going to work for you might not be the same as what works for your teammate, your friend, your sibling, right? Learn what feels best in your body, what works best for you. And lastly, I just want you to remember, right? Why are we eating, right? We're eating. Sometimes we've got to fuel our body. Sometimes we're eating because we're celebrating. Sometimes we're eating because even if we're not hungry, we know we're about to go to the gym and we've got to prioritize performance over hunger sometimes. Right? So just little things to remember. And the last thing I just wanted to touch on, I know we talked mostly about how to fuel our bodies, but we've also got to just I want to remind you to stay hydrated, especially in the hot, you guys are out in what, Las Vegas, the hot sun out there. Staying hydrated really means at least drinking half your body weight in ounces of fluid each day. And that does not even account for gymnastics or training. So, right, if you're, again, just for easy math, about 100 pounds, that means at least 50 ounces of water each day. If we've got like a plain plastic standard water bottle, that's going to be, right, 4 or 5 of these each day without thinking about gymnastics. We've got to make sure we hydrate before, during, and after gym so we feel our best, we stay our best, we don't get dehydrated. And in the gym, this might require more than just water. This might require an electrolyte drink. So electrolytes are just some other minerals that help make sure our body's staying hydrated and we feel our best, as well as sports drinks, which are also going to have carbohydrates. So we might need more than just water, especially if you're someone that gets easily dehydrated, easily tired, sweats a lot. These are all going to be good ideas to include during gym. And just some easy tips to stay hydrated during the day would just be to make sure you've got your water with you all day long, whether you've got a cup, whether you've got a bottle, just keeping it with you all day long, remembering to take little sips. Drinking with each meal or snack, that's an easy way to knock some ounces off of your daily goal. And just make sure you've got a big enough bottle. You've got enough water at the gym, or at least you've got a place where you can easily refill the bottle that you do have. So I know that was a lot, and I want to leave room for questions. We'll keep it open. I do want to just flip, like I said, here. If you have questions that you don't want to ask in front of the group, or you think of questions later on, feel free to reach out to me. So if you've got questions, type them in the chat. If you don't have questions and you want to hop off, I want to say thank you so much for joining us. Before you leave, I want you to tell me one thing either that you learned today or one thing that you're going to try to do differently moving forwards. So lots of people going to work on their schedule, looking for more variety, whether it's with fruits and vegetables, or just making sure we're really checking those boxes with all the food groups, right? Because none of them are more or less important than another. Make sure we're drinking enough water. Yeah, these are all really good goals, really, really simple things, right? We can try to do and try to incorporate. Awesome. Well, I'm glad I could connect with you guys all today.
Thank you for doing this. I'm another coach at Gymcats, so there was some really good information. So hopefully all of us can use it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm, like I said, if you think of questions later on or anything like that, definitely reach out to me. I'm great with emails. I'm great with DM. Whatever is easiest for you.